So what is up everyone? Today I want to review the oldest camera that I own, the Contax 2. Stay tuned. So guys, welcome back. I want to share with you a review about my oldest camera that I own at this moment of time. It's the Contax 2 rangefinder camera, which was produced between 1936 to 1942. This model is out of my family. It was bought in from new by my grandfather, and it was passed down to me, and yes, now I do own it. It's the first rangefinder camera that has a coupled viewfinder. So as you can see, we have two viewfinder holes here. Here is for the line for the image outlines, and the other one is for focusing, and they are mirrored together into one hole. That was top of the notch and first in class, and really quite special. So the interesting part about this camera is that it is a collaboration between Contax and Carl Zeiss. So these cameras actually were produced by Carl Zeiss and manufactured under the name Contax. So this really is a Zeiss camera, and a rather lovely one indeed. It has a few special quirks which I like to run you around, and yeah, the first one being now you can see that I have the Sonar 50mm f2 from Zeiss on this camera, and this is a collapsible lens. So if you want to shoot, you have to push it out. Hope you can see that from here to here, and then lock it in place. So now it's sturdy. And to fold it back, you just turn it back and collapse it in. That's the first thing you have to know about this special camera. The aperture for this lens is here on the front. I hope you can see that. There is this little ring, and you slide it around and the aperture closes. It has the lens in here, is a sonar, and it therefore has 15 aperture blades, giving it a round bokeh every time you stop it down. The next unique thing about these sorts of camera is that it is an interchangeable lens system. I have to give you a little bit of a close-up for that. Wait a second. So now we are back on track. As I've already told you, this camera has an interchangeable lens mount, which isn't that obvious if you look at this camera. It works like that. you have to focus to infinity, which I will show you later how that works. And then you have this little sprocket here, and if you push that down, you can then slide off the lens. So yeah, that's the lens, and that's the lens mount. There were a lot of different lenses for this camera, especially because it has two different mounts on this camera body. So the first type of lenses uses this mount, as I've already showed you, and bigger lenses, I hope you can see that, out here, there and there, you can see another lens mount for so you sit down the lens on the outside and screw it in. So yeah, you could attach two types of lenses, and a lot of different lenses were made. I currently just own this Sonar 50mm f2. This was the second best 50mm you can own. The best one was an Sonar 50mm f1.5, and they are quite expensive to actually buy. One lens I do hope that I can find cheap, but it will take a lot of time, is there is an 85mm f2 for this system. It's a Sonar as well. They are quite rare and quite hard to find. There is one or two on eBay, but they are something like $500 a piece, and that's not what they are really worth. I hope to find one for something like 100 or 150 euros, but yeah, I have the time, I will look for it. So yes, back to this camera. So I've showed you the two different lens mounting system, the one on the outer ring and the one on the inner ring. So now let's mount this back. You have a red dot on your lens. It's right down here, yes, there you can see it. And you have a red dot on the actual mount, it's right there, and another one on the camera body. Why is that? I will show you that later. So you align those red dots and then screw it in place, and it snaps right back in. So now I promised you that I will show you how to focus this camera. So let's adjust this a little bit so that you can hopefully see where I'm going. Yeah, like that. So here on the top you can see this wheel and this notch, and if you look carefully, if I push down on this notch, the other notch around here moves. I hope you can see that. I think you can. And what you have to do is, you have an infinity lock on this camera, which is on right at this moment. The infinity lock is on there so that you can change your lenses. So what you have to do is, if you want to focus away from infinity, you have to press this lever down and then turn the wheel. And you see, as I turn the wheel, the entire lens turns. So it's not really, it's the lens within the lens mount, and it turns quite nicely, and it turns a little bit in and a little bit out. I hope you can see that. So from infinity, where we are now, it clicks in place. You push down the lever and turn the wheel, and then the lens extends. So that is how you focus this camera. Yeah, the next thing you have to look out is quite interesting, and I will have to focus a little bit nearer to show you that. So there you go. We are now a little bit more nearer to this camera, and what I want to show you is you can have a look. I will now focus to infinity, which is right here, and there on the scale it says infinity next to the 20. This is the meter scale, so where you can read on which point the focus sits. So now let's focus to 2 meters. There is a dot right here on the center, and that aligns to the to the number 2, and then you know focus is sitting right at 2 meters. So now if you look a little bit closer, you can see there are another numbers sitting in front, right there, and those are the f-stops. So what this means is, let's say you are on a typical sunny day, no clouds, and you're using the sunny rule. So you shoot 1/100th of a second, and at f8, so you turn this lens to f8. Now your subject is 2 meters away. You now can read from where to where you will get focus. So there's a number 8 and there's a number 8. So from something like 1.6 to 3 meters you will get focus with this camera. So you can do hyperfocal shooting, which is handy for shooting fast subjects. I really like it, and I think it is quite remarkable the way how they fitted this onto this really old and really nice camera. I'm not sure if it was the first one including that, but it was one of the first including. So we are back on the front again to show you the next really nice feature that I do enjoy using quite a bit, or I have to say I would enjoy it. I explain later why that is so, and that is the self-timer. So you cock the shutter up here, set your time. I will show you how that works later on, and then you have to push this lever right down to this to this dot down here. And then it goes up. There you go, and the shot was taken. So it functions. This is something like 80-year-old self-timer that is working perfectly. I also have to say this camera really is in quite good condition for its age. It just has one really big flaw. I will show you that later, but it will be fixed. So I have a mechanic that I will send this camera to, and he will repair it. So yes, a working self-timer. So now let's go on with the upper side of the camera. Let's show that. There we go. Let's bring it a little bit more in and a bit more in focus. So another unique feature we have is up here on the front we have a frame counter, which is working halfway. It has a bit of a problem. That problem is because of the biggest problem of this camera that I will show you later. So that is the shutter. To cock the shutter you have to turn this wheel. So you turn it and there is your shutter cocked. So now how to change your times. It's quite a neat and easy design, which makes this camera quite amazing, I think. And to show you that, I have to focus a little bit more in. So there you go. Now you can see that there are numbers written on the side of the shutter, and there's a red dot. So to change the to change how long the camera will stay open, your times, you just lift it up, turn it, and push it down. There you go. Now we changed from 1250th to a 250th of a second. Those times go all the way from, hope you can see that, yes, bulb, a half of a second, a fifth of a second, then a tenth of a second, a 25th of a second, a fifth of a second, a 125th of a second, a 250th of a second, a 500th of a second, and that's new, that's a world first, to 1205th of a second, which is quite unusual, because on the times until 500th, every step was one step of light. So from a 125th to a 205th, it's one stop of light. But from 500th of a second, the next step would be a 1000th of a second. But in this camera, they really notched up a step and went to a 1205th. of a second, which was the fastest in the entire market. And it was the fastest for Leica and everybody else, and that was a big marketing thing. I've already told you there is the picture counter, and you can set that down here with the equivalent wheel. So now let's have a look through the viewfinder. There's the viewfinder, it's one viewfinder. I don't have the macro lens quite here yet to let you see through it, but yeah, you get it. It's a viewfinder and it's quite big, and it's a coupled one, and the first one at that. So now let's go to the underside. Let's zoom out, let's focus out a bit. So there we go. We have a few things under here. That is not your normal tripod mount, it's the big one. I'm not sure about the diameter, but it's not your normal, you have to use an adapter for that. You have a stand to level this camera out, so if you have a bigger lens on it, that it won't fall over. Yeah, and here this is if you finished your roll of film and you have to reload the film into your old sprocket, you have to press this down to release the film. So now let's go. Actually, no. Let's don't get into the inside. Let's have a look at the back side. Yeah, I've already shown you the viewfinder, and what you can see as well is the size icon logo badged around in the leather on here, and what you can see as well are those bumps. There are quite a lot of them, and that is quite unusual thing. This is an oxidation problem that the earlier one of those Contax 2s have. That was a problem Zeiss had in the pre-war area, where the leather and the brass underneath reacted and they formed those bubbles. So if you have bubbles on your Zeiss camera, you can really nicely date them by that fact, because this was a pre-war thing. In the war, so from 39 on, this was fixed. So this camera actually was built in the first year of the production of this camera. So it's one of the oldest you can have. It was built in 1938, because 1939 this problem was solved. So this camera was from the first year of production of this camera, which makes it quite a lot more rare as it is. So now that I've showed you the back with the bumps and the dating with those let's actually look at the inside and look at the problem that this camera really has. So to get to the inside, let's refocus, there we go. You have those two clips you can push up, and then you have to turn one this way and the other one the other way, and off comes the entire back plate. So now, what is the problem with this camera? It is the shutter times and the shutter itself. So you see there is the curtain, it is like a window blind, and I've already shown you how you rewind the camera. So if we rewind the camera, did you see that? It didn't pull the curtain completely up, so yeah. So that is the biggest problem with this camera. Sometimes it stays down completely. And you see, the shutter times don't work. So I actually will let this camera repair. I will send it off in 2 weeks time, and hopefully that will be fixed, so that this camera that stayed in my family for nearly 100 years will continue to stay in it and has a lot of use again. So let's close this camera back up. Yeah, so what I can say about the operation is this camera really feels amazing in the hand. It is quite a good hefty bugger, and the system with focusing up here really goes quite nice. The viewfinder is really good. It's bright and awesome. But there are a few quirks and problems with this camera. One, you really have to call them design flaws. So yeah, you see the focusing is up here, and the focusing window is up here. So there is a mirror behind there that transits the picture into this other window. But when you focus it, I find myself oftentimes having my focusing finger over the focusing window, which makes focusing not possible. That really is a design flaw. You have to put your finger up here and really have to look out that you don't cover it. The second thing is the aperture. So you see, the aperture is this ring up front, but I'm not sure if you can see that. If you move the aperture ring, the focusing changes. So the optimum thing to do is, and I really don't think it is optimum, you go to infinity, where the lens is locked, you set your aperture, and then you focus to the point where you want to have it. that really isn't convenient. And I'm not quite happy about it, but yeah, those are the little quirks that this camera has. But for this age, this really was a milestone in camera history. It was the first camera to have a coupled rangefinder, and it was the first camera to have a 1250th of a shutter speed. It was cutting edge, and it feels like that it's solidly built. It's a tank, and I hope to get it working back in former glory. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I see you later soon. Goodbye.